What if I told you the people who seem to have it all figured out, the ones who quietly get healthier, wealthier and happier every single year, aren't smarter than you? They're not luckier. They don't even work harder most of the time. They just do one thing differently, and it's so small you'd probably miss it if I didn't point it out. Here's the strange part. If you watched their day minute by minute, you wouldn't be impressed. No dramatic breakthroughs, no all-night grind sessions, just small, boring, repeated actions. And that's exactly the secret nobody wants to hear, because it's not exciting, it's not a hack. It's something called the compound effect. And once you understand how it actually works, you'll never look at your daily choices the same way again. Picture a single drop of water landing on a stone. Nothing happens. Drop number 2, still nothing. You could watch for an hour and swear that stone is invincible, but come back in 5 years and that same stone has a groove worn straight through it. Not because of one powerful drop, but because of thousands of forgettable ones. That's your life right now. Every day, you're either dropping water that shapes your future or you're not. And most of the time, you don't even notice which one you're doing. Here's the problem, though. Your brain is wired to ignore tiny actions. It wants proof, and it wants it fast. So when you wake up 10 minutes earlier, or read one extra page, or choose not to buy something you didn't need, your brain shrugs. That did nothing. And technically, in that exact moment, it's right. But that's the trap. We're chasing the gym body in 30 days, the income jump in a week, the completely different life by Friday. And when it doesn't happen, we quit. Meanwhile, the people getting the results we want are still doing the boring thing, 1% at a time, the same way your phone battery doesn't crash all at once. It just quietly drains, 1% after another, until eventually you notice. But here's what almost nobody tells you. These tiny habits aren't just changing your results, they're changing who you believe you are. Read one page tonight, and some part of you starts thinking, I'm a reader. Walk for 5 minutes after dinner, and you start becoming someone who takes care of their body. Save a little money instead of spending it on impulse, and you become a saver, not because you decided to be one, but because you kept proving it to yourself in tiny, repeated moments. And once your identity shifts, everything gets easier. You stop having to force yourself. You just become the person who does the thing. Let's make this real. Say you want to get in shape. Most people go all in, strict diet, brutal workouts 5 days a week starting Monday. And most people burn out by week 2. Now imagine a different approach. You commit to a 2-minute walk after dinner. That's it. 2 minutes. It sounds almost pointless. But that's exactly why it works. It's too small to talk yourself out of, and too easy to fail at, so you do it. And a strange thing happens. 2 minutes turns into 5 without you deciding anything. 5 turns into 15. Before you've made any big decision to change your life, you're already living differently. That's also why tiny habits are the best defense against the two things that quietly kill progress: excuses and overthinking. When a task is small enough, there's nothing to negotiate. You don't need motivation, because there's barely anything to be motivated about. You just do it. And that, more than any burst of willpower, is how real discipline gets built. Now here's the part that trips almost everyone up. The results don't show up on schedule. Week 1 looks exactly like week 2. Nothing visibly changes, and this is the exact point where most people give up, convinced it isn't working. But the compound effect isn't broken during that silence. It's building. Then, somewhere down the line, it breaks the surface all at once and people start asking you what changed. And you'll know the honest answer. Nothing dramatic. Just hundreds of small choices, quietly stacking on top of each other while nobody was watching. So no, you don't need to transform your entire life today. You need one small action, repeated on purpose. It won't feel like progress at first, but it's the kind of progress that sticks. And once you really understand that, a bigger truth starts staring you in the face. Every choice you make, even the ones that feel too small to matter, sets something in motion. We tend to dismiss small decisions because they feel ordinary, but the compound effect doesn't care how significant a choice feels. It only cares that you made it, and it keeps score whether you're paying attention or not. Think about this morning. The second you woke up, you made a choice: get up or hit snooze. That one decision quietly set the tone for everything after it. Then came the next one: pick up your phone and scroll, or focus on something that actually moves you forward. Then another: reach for something that fuels you, or something that just fills time. None of these felt like big moments, but each one nudged you a step in some direction. And by the end of the day, your entire day was really just the sum of those small, forgettable nudges. This is exactly why taking ownership of your choices matters so much. Your life isn't being written by luck, by circumstances, or by other people. It's being written by the decisions you repeat, day after day. And once that sinks in, something powerful happens. You stop waiting. You stop waiting for the right mood, the right moment, the right conditions. You start creating momentum yourself, on purpose. But there's a catch. The choices that hurt you most are usually invisible. The extra snack you didn't think twice about. The 2 minutes on your phone that turned into 20. The task you skipped because it won't matter today. None of these feel dangerous in the moment. That's exactly why they're dangerous. They don't cost you anything you can see until suddenly they do, all at once. The good news is the same invisible mechanism works in your favor. Reading for 5 minutes, choosing gratitude over complaint, drinking one more glass of water, learning one small thing. None of it feels significant in the moment either, but it's quietly pulling you upward the exact same way the bad habits pull you down, just in the opposite direction, and with far better returns. So here's a habit worth building. Start asking yourself 2 simple questions before you act. Is this choice moving me forward or holding me back? And if I made this exact choice every day for a year, where would it lead me? Those 2 questions cut through almost all the noise because they remind you that success was never one big decision. It's thousands of small ones made on purpose instead of on autopilot. And part of owning your choices means letting go of the idea that you're a victim of your circumstances. It's tempting to blame your situation, your upbringing, your bad luck. But every time you do, you're quietly handing over your power, because if it's someone else's fault, there's nothing you can do about it. Taking responsibility isn't about blaming yourself either. It's about recognizing that you still have influence over your actions, your reactions, and where you end up. And strangely enough, that responsibility isn't a burden, it's freedom. The moment you stop waiting for outside help, you stop feeling stuck. You start moving. Now, once you start making these small conscious choices, something else kicks in. A ripple effect that spreads into parts of your life you never expected. Picture tossing a single pebble into a still pond. The rings don't stay small, they spread outward, wider and wider, touching the whole surface. That's what a habit does. It never stays contained to one area of your life. Positive habits behave like a current pulling you forward. Start reading regularly, and it's not just your knowledge that grows. Your confidence grows with it, and better decisions start following naturally. Start exercising, and your energy rises, your focus sharpens, and suddenly you're more productive at work too, almost as a side effect. Start saving consistently, and financial discipline opens doors to bigger opportunities down the line. None of these are separate wins, they're connected, each one quietly feeding the next, until one day you look back and realize how far the ripple has carried you. Negative habits ripple outward too, just in the opposite direction. Cutting sleep short, scrolling for hours, putting things off, none of it feels harmful in isolation. But it accumulates in the background, quietly draining your energy and your momentum long before you notice the damage. And that's the danger. The cost doesn't show up immediately. By the time you feel it, in missed opportunities, in burnout, in wasted time, it's already compounded, which is exactly why catching these patterns early matters so much. This is where momentum comes in, what author Darren Hardy calls Big Mo. Once a good habit gets rolling, it becomes easier to keep going. One healthy meal makes the next one easier to choose. One productive hour builds appetite for another. It's like pushing a snowball downhill. The longer it rolls, the bigger and faster it gets, and eventually it's rolling almost on its own. The same is true in reverse for bad habits, which is why the earlier you interrupt them, the easier it is. There's real science behind this too. Every time you repeat an action, your brain reinforces the neural pathway tied to it. Do something consistently, and eventually it takes almost no willpower at all. It becomes automatic. That's true of good habits and bad ones alike, which is exactly why steady, small effort beats occasional bursts of intensity every time. So if you want to use this ripple effect on purpose, start with just one habit. Make it non-negotiable. Then watch, not just for changes in that one area, but for how it quietly begins to affect everything else. That's the real goal here. Not perfection, just consistent, intentional movement in the right direction. And that brings us to the principle that ties everything together. Consistency beats intensity every single time. We love the idea of the massive breakthrough, the one workout, the one all-nighter, the one big push that changes everything. But real, lasting results are built on something far less dramatic, showing up again and again, especially when nothing seems to be happening. One hard workout doesn't make you fit. One night of cramming doesn't make you knowledgeable. One intense week of saving doesn't make you wealthy. It's the version of you that keeps showing up on the ordinary days that actually gets there. Consistency is the engine underneath the compound effect, but only if you stay with it through the stretch where nothing seems to be changing. The easiest way to build that consistency is through routine. When you exercise at the exact same time every day, you remove the mental debate of should I or shouldn't I. It just becomes what happens next automatically. The same goes for reading, journaling, saving. A well-built routine takes the decision out of it, which is exactly what makes it sustainable even on the hard days. And underneath routine is discipline, the quieter, steadier cousin of motivation. Motivation shows up when it feels like it and disappears just as easily. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It just shows up anyway. That's genuinely difficult because it means choosing long-term progress over short-term comfort again and again, especially when no one's watching and nothing feels like it's working. One more thing trips people up here: unrealistic expectations. Too many people try to change everything overnight, and it collapses under its own weight. A 10-minute habit done daily will outperform an hour-long habit done once a week, every time, because it's the one you'll actually keep doing. Start smaller than feels necessary. Build from there. And don't underestimate the value of simply checking in with yourself. Whether it's a quick journal entry, a note on your phone, or a weekly reflection, regularly reviewing your progress helps you notice patterns before they become problems, and it reminds you, especially when results feel invisible, that every small step is still counting towards something. Because here's the real payoff of consistency. It builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you prove to yourself that you're someone who does what they say they'll do. And that self-trust becomes its own kind of fuel. The more consistent you are, the more confident and disciplined you become, which makes the next day's consistency even easier. It's a loop that feeds itself, which brings us to something just as important as the habit itself: knowing whether it's actually working. Without tracking, even the best habit can quietly drift off course. This isn't about obsessing over numbers, it's about building awareness of what's actually moving the needle in your life. Start by getting specific about what matters most to you right now. If it's your finances, maybe it's how much you're saving each month. If it's your health, maybe it's hours of sleep or daily steps. If it's personal growth, maybe it's pages read or a new skill practiced. The moment you pick something measurable, your goals stop being abstract and start becoming something you can actually see move. The tracking itself doesn't need to be complicated. A notebook, an app, a simple checkmark on a calendar. What matters is doing it consistently, because inconsistent tracking hides the very patterns you're trying to catch. And there's a bonus effect. The simple act of writing something down reinforces the habit itself, because your brain starts connecting the effort to the outcome. Tracking also has a way of exposing things you'd rather not see, but need to. You might feel like you're making progress, only to realize your numbers tell a different story. Maybe it's the late-night scrolling quietly wrecking your focus the next day. Maybe it's skipped meals draining your energy more than you realized. Once you can see it clearly, you can actually do something about it, and that's the real value. Awareness creates choice. Keeping a simple journal alongside your tracking adds another layer, not just numbers, but reflections. What worked, what didn't, what you're proud of. It turns your progress into something real and tangible instead of a vague feeling, and it becomes a record you can look back on for both motivation and honest course correction. And that's really the deeper purpose of tracking. It lets you adjust. Life doesn't stay the same, and what worked for you 6 months ago might not work now. Reviewing your progress regularly lets you catch that early, adapt, and keep moving instead of quietly stalling out while still going through the motions. In the end, tracking is what turns invisible effort into visible proof. When you can actually see your small daily actions adding up, doubt starts to fade, replaced by something much more useful: evidence. You stop wondering if this is working and start knowing that it is. There's one final piece that takes everything we've covered and multiplies it: your environment. Consistency and small habits lay the foundation, but the people, spaces, and systems around you can either accelerate your progress or quietly work against it. This isn't about working harder, it's about setting things up so your progress compounds faster, almost without extra effort. Start with the people around you. Spend time with people who are consistent, driven, and genuinely growing. You'll find it easier to stay consistent yourself. Surround yourself with the opposite, and you'll feel that pull too, just in the wrong direction. The same goes for your physical space. A clear workspace, easy access to what you need, fewer obstacles between you and the habit. All of it quietly removes friction and makes the right choice the easy choice. Mentors and people a few steps ahead of you are another shortcut worth taking. Learning from someone who's already where you want to be means you skip a lot of the trial and error that would otherwise cost you months or years. You're not just borrowing their knowledge, you're absorbing the habits and mindset that got them there. And finally, once your habits, your choices, and your tracking are all working together, start stacking them. One healthy habit gives you more energy, which sharpens your focus, which makes you more productive elsewhere. One small financial habit opens the door to bigger opportunities down the line. Each win doesn't stay isolated, it builds on the one before it, and that's where growth stops being linear and starts compounding on itself. Just remember, none of this replaces the foundation. Environment, mentorship, and momentum are multipliers, not shortcuts. Try to skip the daily discipline and jump straight to acceleration, and you're building on sand. But combine the two, the quiet daily consistency and the smart use of your environment, and something remarkable happens. Progress that once felt slow and grinding starts to feel almost effortless, even though, underneath it, it's more earned than ever. So here's where it leaves you. You don't need a dramatic transformation starting tomorrow. You need one small, honest action today, and the willingness to repeat it long after it stops feeling exciting. That's genuinely the whole secret. Not motivation, not luck, not some perfect plan. Just small, deliberate choices made consistently, quietly compounding into a life you'll eventually look back on and barely recognize, in the best possible way. If this gave you something worth thinking about, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and stick around for more, because the small stuff really is the whole story.